splitting of chairman and managing director role, which goes back to the Kotak Committee, I'd like to remind everybody that what the committee recommended was only a split of that role. The committee never recommended that the chairman and managing director should not be related to each other. That was an enhanced, additional thing that the regulator considered. And that should always have been voluntary as a suggestion versus a mandatory requirement, because it was never the recommendation of the committee itself. Requirement to, for that role, those two roles not to be related, I think is a step too far, in my view. I think most promoters who are in those chairman MD roles understand today that a high-performing board is really a secret weapon. It is something that supports value creation, supports their business to perform better, and it's not something that is misaligned to their own objectives, which hopefully also ought to be value maximization of that promoter stake versus any amount of money they can make in some small transactions outside. I think that realization is there. If you were to make that sort of norm, where you have to split the chairman MD role and those two roles can't be related, it will call into question really family succession. Who assumes what role? How do you make choices between children? How do you make choices even between parents and children who are both in management roles at the company? And I think for people who've spent their careers, their lifetimes building businesses, that would be a step too far for the regulator to prescribe. That option is not there. And I think finally, what I'd say is it comes down to culture, and it comes down to doing the right thing. How boards operate. You would never be able to achieve the ultimate in corporate governance through regulation. At the risk of crystal ball gazing, I think the requirement for the chairman and MD not to be related is probably going to be a permanent withdrawal. I don't think that norm exists anywhere in the world, was recommended by the Kotak Committee, and therefore should ever be brought back even into consideration. However, the requirement for the chairman and MD role to be split, for that to be legislated for potentially some really large companies, is probably likely going to come back at some stage in my view. Always the room to continue to evolve regulation to be appropriate, but you can't look at exceptions and try and make regulations to fix those exceptions. I've always believed you first need to work on implementing current regulations, and how you will catch people who try and get around regulations in legal form. You only catch that through enhanced monitoring of the regulator, enhanced regulatory capacity. It can't be through getting the 99% who follow regulations, both in legal form and in substance, to follow something else in addition. So I'll give you one example there. If you look at the norm where the chairman of a company is executive, you need to have 50% of the board being made up of independent directors, right? You're familiar with that norm. And I was looking at very good research done by IMA recently, and that basically said that even that norm, that 50% of the board has to be non-executive, where the chairman is executive, we are not yet complying with. Amongst large caps, that number is 44.8% of non-executives versus the minimum 50%. Amongst mid caps, it's 42.6%. Amongst small caps, it's 43.9%. And you'd be surprised, amongst foreign multinationals, it's the lowest. It's 36.6% independent directors when compared to the minimum requirement of 50%. So even on that minimum 50% requirement, which is a regulation, that's not a recommendation, we are not yet compliant. So it's first better to get people to comply with the current regulations versus trying to introduce something new.